It's enough, I know, to have the liberal left choking on their chai lattes and avocado and wholemeal toast, but it is just possible that the arrival of President Trump will bring a new dynamic to both the major areas of conflict on the planet at the moment, one of which we'll look at later, Ukraine, and the suggestion, as I say again, as yet unconfirmed by Trump's side, that he's already been speaking with Vladimir Putin, which you have to see as a positive because you only ever solve these matters by talking. But let's go first to the Middle East. And of course, there's even more significance there, isn't there? Because as Israel's greatest ally, all allies turn to the US to see how President-elect Trump will handle that ongoing conflict. Now, he spent a large part of his presidential campaign saying he would stop the wars, both in the Middle East and in Ukraine. But details are unclear on how exactly he'd do it, particularly in the Middle East. But that didn't stop the president-elect from using his victory speech after winning the US election last week to make the claim again.
You know, we had no wars. 4 years, we had no wars, except we defeated ISIS. We defeated ISIS in record time, but we had no wars. They said, he will start a war. I'm not going to start a war. I'm going to stop wars.
Now, it's particularly unclear on what the end of the war in the Middle East would look like. Experts saying it depends on specifics that Donald Trump has yet to offer. Pressures also on Prime Minister Netanyahu that extend beyond his relationship with Trump, and whether the war would be classed as ended if there are still ongoing military operations in both Gaza and Lebanon. That said, however, Netanyahu still believes a key ally has been elected in Trump, and he spoke at the weekend about their new relationship.
In the last few days, I've spoken 3 times with President-elect Donald Trump. These were good and very important conversations. Conversations designed to further tighten the firm alliance between Israel and the United States.
Let's turn first to Emily Schrader, who's an American-Israeli journalist focusing on Israeli and Iranian relations, joining me from Tel Aviv. What do you think, or what do you hope the new dynamic might be in 70-plus days? Good morning to you.
Good morning. Good to be on with you. I think that we can expect to see a better situation in the Middle East. Whether or not one is a fan of Trump, it is a fact that we did see a more peaceful situation throughout the Middle East. In fact, we saw the unprecedented advancement of peace in the region. And I'm hopeful that we can return to at least some of that in a second Trump term.
What does the end of conflict look like?
I think the end of conflict requires managing the Islamic Republic of Iran. I don't think we're going to see an actual end to all of the conflict in the Middle East until we actually see a regime change in Iran. Now, Trump, I think, and also J.D. Vance, the vice president-elect, has been very clear on this issue that Trump doesn't view himself as someone who's going to come in and bring about regime change in Iran. He views that as something that can only really be done by the people of Iran. And personally, I actually agree with that sentiment. What the West and Trump and other world leaders can do is enforce existing sanctions, is lay out new sanctions, is pressure the Islamic Republic and allies of the West to also pressure the Islamic Republic to act with accountability, to cut off their resources and able to limit their funding to terror proxies throughout the Middle East, be it in Yemen, Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, or Gaza, and to prevent them from advancing to, obtain a nuclear weapon. That's something that's really imminently on the agenda in the next couple of months, and I'm hopeful that the Trump administration would be able to deal with it.
How much is there a danger, Emily, that rightly or wrongly, the other sides might see Donald Trump as being too close to Israel?
I don't actually think it's a danger. I think, if anything, it's a good thing. While one might not agree with Israel's approach or Israel's policy or the execution of the war in the last year, these can all be legitimate criticisms. The fact remains that Israel is standing on the side of a Western democracy. It is the only country in the Middle East that is doing so. And unfortunately, what we have seen is the Islamic Republic of Iran use the Middle East as basically a base for all of their terror proxies. All of these occupations that we see in the Middle East, they aren't coming from Israel. They're coming from the Islamic Republic, whether it's in Yemen or in Iraq or Syria or any of the other places that we see it. Hezbollah in Lebanon is an excellent example. UNIFIL had an obligation under international law to disarm this terrorist organization, and they haven't been able to do that for 18 plus years, despite the U.S. alone, if we're looking at the numbers, contributing $2.6 billion since 2006, since this mandate came into effect. This is insanity. Somebody has to do the job to clean up the Middle East, and I hope that hopefully my first choice would be in diplomatic ways that the Trump administration is able to deal with that.
How likely is it that both sides want a reset?
I think that I don't know if you're talking about Israel or the United States here or Iran. I don't think that Iran, all
All
parties.
parties ready for a reset?
I think that Israel and the United States would be happy for somewhat of a reset. I don't think that as long as you have the regime in Iran that you have today, I don't think that that's what they're looking for at this point. However, the Iranian people are screaming from the rooftops for exactly this. They do want a reset. They want a different type of country. And again, I hope that a Trump administration leading, hopefully, Europe and the rest of the world as well, when it comes to dealing with this issue, I'm hopeful that we can actually avoid a full out war by having a stronger policy towards this regime because they are not going to respond. They never have, and they are not going to ever respond to any form of appeasement. It's simply not how they work.
Thank you for your time this morning, Emily. Emily Schrader is an American-Israeli journalist joining us from Tel Aviv, 11 after 7. Let's put some of those points now to Nazanin Ansari, who's managing director at Kayhan Life. That's a media outlet focusing on Iran, and joining me now. What has been the reaction across Iran to the news last week of Trump's success? Good morning.
Good morning, Nick, and thank you for having me
Not
on
at
your
all.
program.
Thank you.
It has been a positive reaction from all of those Iranians who have been against the Islamic Republic and the Iranian regime. And certainly what we heard from the foreign minister, Abbas Araghchi of the Islamic Republic, is that they want to reset and start building confidence building measures between the United States and Iran. And basically what he said was that the American people have made their decision and Iran respects the right to elect the president of their choice. And the path forward is also a choice, and it begins with respect. Now, this is very unexpected since just a week before the Supreme Leader and basically those in power had been saying that we will never be able to come into an agreement with Mr. Trump, and they blamed him for the elimination of the commander of the Quds force. So all in all, it seems that against all expectations, the Islamic Republic wants some form of stability with the United States.
Who has to give what for a pathway to be discovered? Nazanin.
Well, certainly, there are while the Biden administration had been in place, although there were back channel negotiations and the administration basically turned its eye when, the Islamic Republic was selling oil to China, but they wanted first. It is the question of the nuclear under the Biden administration. The uranium enrichment increased. It was also basically the support for militant groups and terrorist groups in the region, including Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, and also the Iranian the missile program that increased. So these are the three areas: the missile program, the uranium enrichment, and support for proxy groups in the Middle East. These are the the Iranian regime has in the past week has signaled that they might be open to to negotiate on all terms.